This is Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production, your daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball, featuring interviews with special guests. Now here's your host, Mr. Steve Jones.
Out of Syracuse shirts or?
No Syracuse shirt today. Not
Really?
today.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, not in a Syracuse mood at the moment.
Why not?
I don't know.
We're getting close here.
We are getting close here.
Who's your opener?
Who's our opener? That is a great question. It's not going to be someone good. Usually Wagner is like second on the schedule for us.
Wagner.
That's usually what it ends up being.
The Seahawks.
The Wagner Seahawks in the JMA Wireless Dome. This year, our opener is Colgate, then Western Michigan, and we got a little bit of time until we have Clemson.
Do you know who's on the Colgate football team?
I do not.
As a true freshman? Mike Rhodes' son.
Well, then. I'm sorry to Mike Rhodes. Your son is not going to win his first football game for Colgate.
They're a 3-point favorite. No, I'm just kidding. No, Mike says his son likes it so far. I was talking to Mike about it the other day. He says his son's, Penn State played Colgate in 1980.
Okay.
In the opener. And won 54-10, I think.
Dang, okay.
Played everybody. You can look it up. 1980 opener, Colgate. I was 54-10 at Beaver Stadium. I remember everybody got in. Kevin Bow, who ended up being a great punt returner and a really good wideout at Penn State, came in the fourth quarter as a tailback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was the number you gave in terms of score?
54-10.
54-10. Saturday, September 6th, 1980. Wow. Well done, sir. Your knowledge of Penn State scores.
You're sitting there right there going, okay, I keep waiting for him to lose it.
At some point.
There's a lot of people out there waiting for me to lose it.
At some point, I'm going to get you on something. It's going to happen.
You will. You'll get me on something.
It'll happen, whether it be a Saints number or it'll be something soccer-wise. I'll get you. I'll get you somewhere.
I remember the first play in the history of the Saints.
Oh, boy.
John Gilliam returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. In the regular season opener, 1967, which the Miami Dolphins the year before in 1966 duplicated when Joe Auer ran the opening kickoff of the season back for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. You're looking it up now.
It is correct. 94-yard kickoff return, John Gilliam, Saints versus Rams, Sunday, September 17th, 1967, in the Tulane Stadium in front of 80,000 people.
Jack's first Super Bowl is in Tulane Stadium.
Dang.
He says to me, see, what, does it say anything that, like, places I played in have been torn down? I said no. So they were old to begin with.
Well, I was going to be nice and say they couldn't get better than Jack Ham. Right. But if you want to go that route.
No. So Yankee Stadium. Mm-hmm. So Penn State plays in the Pinstripe Bowl in 2014. Mm-hmm. And right next to it is now a park where the old Yankee Stadium used to be. Now, what they did with the old Yankee Stadium was that they refurbished it, and for 2 years the Yankees played at Shea Stadium. Mm-hmm. The Giants played actually at Yale Bowl, and then eventually moved to the Meadowlands.
The Yale Bowl in New Haven, Connecticut, a great location.
Which I went to a couple of games there because, I was living in Connecticut. I went to a couple of games.
Yeah.
I was like, cool. I saw the Cardinals, saw the Cowboys. Didn't see the Giants win. The Giants hardly ever won there. Mm-mm. And so he was talking to his wife on the phone, Joanne. He says, yeah, no, it's the new Yankee Stadium. No, I played in the original Yankee Stadium. And she said, you did not. And he looks over, Steve. I said, yeah, he actually did. Right? He says, wingman, back. He says, the original house that Ruth built.
Yeah, the house that the real one.
Before it was refurbished.
Yeah.
But yeah. So they've torn down a few places.
They have.
That's why it was interesting at the scrimmage on Saturday, the open scrimmage. One side was completely filled with stands. Mm-hmm. So normally that's the side when they do work in practice, when it's offense versus defense, the offense stands on the side where the stands happen to be. Well, because the stands were there, they didn't want players blocking their view of the field. So they both were on the same side. Offense was to my left, defense was to my right. There are only 2 stadiums in the history of the NFL I can remember where both teams were on the same sideline.
Mm-hmm.
One was Metropolitan Stadium in Bloomington.
Okay.
Right, where the Vikings played. Both teams were on the same sideline. And the other one was County Stadium in Milwaukee. The Packers used to play 4 games in Green Bay and 3 in Milwaukee every year.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Then it finally got to the point, I want to say it was in the 80s, where they moved all the games to Green Bay. And I've had the privilege of going to a Packers game up in Lambeau.
That is one place I would like to go to at some point.
It's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pro game with a college town feel. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable, I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the only 2 I can think of where everybody was on the same sideline. I was standing there thinking, it's like Metropolitan Stadium and County Stadium. I'm thinking to myself, there is nobody knows what I'm talking about. Nobody.
Nope.
Okay, that was a long time ago because the Metrodome was built in 81 or 82 or something like that. So this is a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Kapp was the quarterback.
Just slightly dating yourself a little bit.
Bart Starr.
What a man.
Scott Hunter.
You're going back to the original Packers teams, what you're doing.
Yeah. I don't go back to Don Hudson.
No, it'd be a little bit too far.
Yeah. There are some people that think I do, but I don't. All right, so here we are. Yesterday was the go, no-go for the ACC, which means the earliest that anybody can leave now is before the 2025 season, which means we'll go through this drama next year to deal with the 26th season. As I said to you yesterday, the grant of rights document is a simple one, which is great because I'm a simple guy. And in 18 months, this is not a 2,000-page document where you've got to take a long time to pour through it. It's only a few pages.
Steve, 5 pages is a lot to read, okay? As a recently graduated college kid, having to read 5 pages or write 5 pages, it could take you hours.
That's why you have a team of lawyers.
Yeah, and it's taken them years,
right?
literally 18 months. It's tough, Steve. It's tough.
If you can't find it, and they've been doing this for 18 months at Florida State, 18 months. If you can't find it, it's not there. That's why they look around and go, okay, we need to raise a lot more money.
Just a little bit.
So that's by the board. Look, if Florida State plays its cards right, all right, number one, keep working on the academic side, get yourself to the AAU. Once you get to the end of this Big Ten contract here, which will be right about the end of this decade, if the Big Ten is in the mood and feels the success of the USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, feels the transition is smooth enough, and they want to go bigger, that's still a big if, because they didn't want to do it this time. But they looked at the circumstances and said, okay, let's do something we really don't feel like doing because long-term, it's the play. Florida State could, because at that point, the window now is much smaller on the exit.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still an exit fee, which is standard, but the grant of rights part of it will be a better negotiation.
Mm-hmm. And what you're saying, by the way, is the Big Ten will go the Oakland Athletics route from 02, the Moneyball season, and go for 20.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, go for 20. He couldn't go to the games.
No,
he felt he'd listen to the games, then turn it off. Listen to the games, turn it off. But maybe they can play their card that way. Maybe at that point that the SEC's in the mood to do something. We'll see. But I think the key for the Big Ten right now is you've got to make sure that you make the integration of the West Coast as seamless as possible and find out what you need to tweak, if there are any tweaks needed. I think you need to do that first before you start saying, okay, now let's do this and this. You can't bite off more than you can chew, as the old saying goes. That's why I was not for going beyond 16, because I wanted to see how USC and UCLA worked first. And I don't mean football and men's basketball.
Just everything.
Right? It's bigger than that. It's exponentially more complicated with the other sports than it is in football and basketball.
You've got soccer and gymnastics and basketball,
softball and baseball and track and field,
basketball, all these different sports.
Right. So there's a lot that you have to take care of to make sure that, okay, is this working after a couple of years? Okay, what's working, what's not? Then I thought by the end of the decade, that's when you look at Oregon and Washington and say, hey, what do you think? Because this worked. That's how I thought it was going to play out. Same thing with Florida State and Clemson. They're locked into this thing for a long time, but with each year, as each year goes by, right now, as I said yesterday, the grant of rights on Florida State is about $500 million for the rest of the contract, right in that neighborhood. Well, each year that number goes down because each year, okay, you click off. Well, in about 5 years, they're going to click off a chunk of that, where now it becomes an easier negotiation.
And the money on the back end you'll get from the Big Ten will be bigger because, as we know, it's a little bit more backloaded. So, like, the money's going to be going up on one side and down on the other.
Well,
it's
the Big Ten at that point would be negotiating a new TV contract, and that now. And does the Big Ten want to go in to a TV contract with a team in the Southeast, or they want to just say, no, we're going to stick with 18? Those will be decisions they have to make. But, let it play out over time here. I think that's the important thing that you can do. For goodness sakes. I got this Hershey event tomorrow night. How many phone calls do I need?
At least 17 is my guess.
Here's one for you. I'm going to get in the car, drive down, show up, tell me what you need, we'll move on. It's good. All right. I've already talked to 8 people. It's another text.
But the truth is there of, like, when this contract kind of comes up, at that point it's going to be less money for Florida State to get out, or a team like a Clemson if they wanted out at that point.
Right. And at that point we'll have a better idea of if their value continues to be what they perceive it to be. Did it improve? Did it fall back?
Did it maintain?
What does the Big Ten look like in a 1 through 18 scenario? Does the Big Ten say maybe we want to revert to divisions? What's the total landscape look like? How many teams are in the college football playoff now? Is it going to still be 12? Will it be 16? I'd like to see some answers first, because you feel good about the 18 you have moving forward. Right? How do you make it work? Are the fan bases excited about it? Are people watching? Are your big brands delivering like they should? Are you getting multiple teams into the college football playoff? And I don't mean 2. Are you getting anywhere from 3 to 5 teams into the college football playoff, especially if it's 16?
And not even just getting there, going far.
Yeah, and then advancing in it. Am I putting together schedules that are intriguing for TV, but at the same time give my top brands the best chance of getting to the playoff? You've got to have a little balance as to how you schedule in a conference where you just can't look over and go, okay, Penn State, you're going to play Ohio State, Michigan, USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, Rutgers, Maryland, and Indiana.
Yeah, it's got to be fun. It's got to be interesting. It's got to add to the excitement.
Right. So the schedule they'd originally put out essentially had the top 4, quote, brands, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, USC. You play 2 out of 3 on a rotating basis every year.
Which makes sense.
That looked like it looked to me like that was the pattern that was forming. That made sense.
Logical.
Good for TV, and at the same time, enough space where you can still get some things done.
Yeah.
You can absorb a couple of losses in a 12-team playoff and get there now.
Yeah. And also, it makes sense for a scheduling purpose of, okay, there's 3 teams, so it's home 1 year, away the next year, and then the year after that, you're off with them.
Right.
Real easy.
Right.
Makes sense.
And you played everybody in 4 years. That was the big part of it. And I still think that's a critical component here, playing everybody in a 4-year span if you can. That way it still feels like a conference. Right. Now, do you look at, for example, in Iowa, which they have the Flex Protect, Well, there are 11 of those. Well, Iowa's involved in 3 of them. Now, Oregon and Washington should get one. It's logical. You need to do it. Okay? So do you look at Iowa, for example, and say, hey, look, you can have 2 or you can have 1, or do you let them keep all 3? I don't know. But you need to look at them and at least ask, because Penn State has none. All right? But it allowed them to balance out the schedule by having just 11 of them. Does adding a 12th one, which to me is a necessity. I think they're the 2 Northwest schools, so go ahead to head. It's great for them. It's great for their fan bases. It's an easy travel, the whole deal, right? It's logical. But now, how do you work out the rest of it? Then, what do you do? Basketball, you can work out. Like
big enough schedule,
right? In other words, the year that USC and UCLA come to your place, you go to Oregon and Washington for a weekend. The weekend when Oregon and Washington come to your place, that's the year that you go to USC and UCLA. Okay, you can work that out. Instead of having, do you want everybody to play each other? You have a 20-game schedule. So in a 20-game schedule, do you play 2 home and aways now and 17 one plays? Or excuse me, 2 home and aways and 16 one plays to get you 20. You still want to give your basketball programs, right? Because the old way was going to be, I think I understood it was 3 home and aways.
It'd be, yeah. The math on that is tough, but it would be.
It's 3 home and aways and then 14 one plays.
That sounds right.
Yeah, so 3 home and aways and 14 one plays is good balance. You're fine with that. You can make that work.
And you got to rotate it every that'd be every 5-6 years. You play everyone home and away at some point.
Yeah. Well, you do it. You do it in 2 years.
Yeah, because you just flip them next year.
Yeah, you just do it in 2 years. You play everybody home and away.
In terms of doubling up in a season, at least that is.
Right. Yeah, and then, like I said, USC and UCLA come to your place the first year, and then the next year you go out there, and then in Oregon and Washington do the flip. That way you're only making 1 West Coast trip a year. All right? So you can do that. It's the other sports where you're going to have to really fight the balance a little bit as to how do you do the soccer part? How do you do the softball part? How do you do the baseball part? That's why I talked about, hey, look, this is a good time to talk to the coaches about, do we do a 3-division setup of 6 each?
It would make a lot of sense.
Where you have crossovers.
Interconference play, right? It's baseball.
Where you would sit there, okay, you get your 6 here in the East, okay, just to cut down on the travel, make it a little easier. But you'd still have, okay, this year we're going to play a series at Nebraska. This year we're going to play a series at UCLA, right? So 1 from each of the other 2 divisions, and just kind of rotate through over a 5-6 year period and get everybody. Maybe you do 2 crossover, whatever. Where that way you still have that feel of conference, and then of course maybe you want to do an in-season tournament where everybody comes together and does something to give it more of a conference feel. I think it's something that and I think block scheduling is important. Block scheduling is something where you can take, okay, it's time to go to Oregon and Washington. All right, well, let's get the women's soccer team, the men's soccer team. Let's get the women's volleyball team, the cross-country team, all go out together, right? Okay, 1 hotel in Eugene, 1 hotel in Seattle, right? Go up, just kind of take care of it in 1 weekend, bring them back. Block schedule. Athletes are around athletes. Same thing with block scheduling. Meanwhile, you're playing, Penn State's playing, everyone's playing Oregon. Right. Meanwhile, everybody at Ohio State's playing Washington, and then flip. Ohio State goes down to Eugene. Penn State goes up to Seattle. They play, but block scheduling, division scheduling, regionalization. I think is something that if I'm sitting in the room and we're just spitballing ideas, that would be one that I would a couple that I would throw out there. Right. Now, after they're soundly rejected, we'll go down another path.
Right? When the people don't want to listen to Steve Jones all the time? Why not? But when they want to listen to you, you're right. That is a truly good idea, though. Like
it's just something to think about.
It's something to think about, but wholeheartedly, like it is a logical answer to a problem that is being made a bigger problem than it is. There's a very simple answer here. It's just a question of, do teams and do conferences and do these different coaches want to say, yeah, let's do this. Let's split up the conference. Let's do some sort of tournaments. Let's make this easier for ourselves. Because at the end of the day, it'll make it a lot easier. Right. And on the back end, it'll make it easier if you add more teams in.
And it makes it easier for the student athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Right, in terms of the wear and tear of travel and so forth. And it's easier for them to travel these days. Mm-hmm. Much easier.
But if they have to travel from Rutgers, they have to travel over to Washington, it's a big flight. Barely many teams in like the NBA and them do it. They always fly and do a whole trip up one coast, and then they fly back east, like the Knicks. If they go out there, it's the Clippers, then it's the Lakers, then all of a sudden you go up for the Kings and Warriors, and then you go up to the Trailblazers, then you fly back east. It's this very big trip, and it makes it a lot easier on them if it's just not a back and forth every other day, because that's what it ended up being if you did one huge 18-team thing with soccer, where it's like you're playing a game tonight in Piscataway, and tomorrow you're going back home to Los Angeles, and then the next day, oh yeah, we're flying out to Nebraska. Not easy on a college kid, especially.
And I mean, they have to take care of the academics. I mean, there's no question about that. You are still, despite all the NIL talk, which is important, you're still in a university.
Yeah. You're still chemistry.
and I'll give you a quick story, a side story on that. Danny Conlon, by the way, Shane's son, just got his degree on the basketball team. But a guy that was mentioned because he's not playing right now, Smith Vilbert. So I saw Smith in Haluba Hall running the other day. And he comes running over to me and he says, "Mr. Jones." I said, "Yeah, Smith." He says, "I graduated. I got my degree on Friday." I was so proud of him. You know, I mean, look, every journey has its ups and downs, and he's experienced some. And it was great for him that he got his degree. It was in communications. I said, great. I said, "So you're going to be gunning for my job?" You know, I'm just having some fun. Like, "Oh, Mr. Jones." Right. But I was so thrilled for him. And you could tell it meant a lot to him that he got his degree. And I thought that was great. And look, he's busting his backside to get himself back, next year. I mean, it's, and, I was just thrilled for him. But don't think NIL has lessened the idea of graduating and the accomplishment of it and getting a degree to set your life up means. You can't ever forget that part of it. And he was a great example when he said that to me. I want to say it was Sunday. It was Monday night. Monday night he told me about it. It was like, wow. I thought, that is really terrific. And then he came out, and I mentioned it to Mike Rhodes. And Mike went over and congratulated him, which was really cool.
You're making me cry. It's 11:30 in the morning, Steve.
But it's really, it meant a lot to him, and it should.
Mm-hmm.
And he had to fight his way to get to it, and he accomplished it. And I give him all the credit in the world for, And now he's working on. Now he's going to work on a master's.
Dang.
And it's like,
that's big.
Like, it is big, and I'm so happy for him. Right? Okay, and but yeah. So there's still a big picture out there. 2 weeks from Saturday, check it. I'm sorry, 1 week from Saturday is the actual opening week. Penn State will be practicing that day because theirs is 2 weeks from Saturday. But Navy and Notre Dame will open up in Ireland. And there'll be a few other games sprinkled in week 0, whatever they want to call it, opening week. And the Thursday before Penn State and West Virginia play on August 31st, Nebraska plays Minnesota. Intriguing game. First game for Matt Rule. Minnesota's excited about its quarterback. So we're getting to the point where we're actually going to start talking about games.
Mm-hmm.
I know this sounds strange. I enjoy that a lot more.
What, you enjoy talking about games? No way, Steve. That I truly do not believe, sir. Refuse to believe that.
So, do you participate in fantasy football?
I do participate in fantasy football.
Have you done your draft yet?
My draft is coming up the first week of the season, September 7th, the NFL. My draft is the August 29th, 30th, something like that.
Okay, good.
I'm holding off. The league agreed, let's wait until the end of preseason to kind of know what injuries have gone on and what has happened, because injuries have taken place already, and we needed to make sure our teams were set for that case scenario.
Do you know where you draft?
I do not. We have not decided how we are going to select our order. In the past, in leagues, I have done random wheel spins.
Okay. Other
years, it's just been let the computer randomly generate it. And other times, it's been random things, random ways to do it. I always see people. I saw someone on social media, they did like a computer game. It was a duck race, like one of the games you see at like a carnival or a fair.
Like the Grange Fair duck race?
The Grange Fair duck race, and the duck go, and you see in the duck to win, of course, and take the standings from there and go down. But I have not done it. I do know what my team name is already, but that is because I'm trying to draft a certain player.
What is your team name?
My team name, it's one I've stuck to for a few years, Lights Camara Action. Is Alvin
have you been able to get Alvin every year?
I have. Every year I've been able to get him.
Well, I don't really know how it works, but I sense he gets you a lot of points.
He would, but it's difficult for him because he is suspended the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, which as a Saints fan is tough. But it should help me a little bit in terms of getting him because he'll fall in the draft. But that is one team name of many. The one I think you would enjoy and appreciate is the team name I used to have. I want to see there's 2 references in terms of players in this: Forte, Akers, and a mule. And the 2 references, of course, Matt Forte and David Akers.
David Akers.
It was my brother suggested it to me a while ago because I had Matt Forte and David Akers, and I was like, "You're a genius."
Wow.
And I enjoy a good team name.
Now, is there a prize at the end of this?
There is a buy-in. There's a certain amount of money being put on the line by each person. The winning guy gets 80% of the pot. Second place gets his money back plus a little bit. And also pride on the line, because you don't want to be the guy to lose, and you don't want to be the guy to come second. You want to come first.
All right.
It's been a few years since I've won. I won back in 2017, the year I did take Alvin Kamara in the 13th round or whatever it was, and hit. It's pretty good. I know. You're very intrigued by fantasy football. When I select my team, I'll have you critique it.
I couldn't tell you if it was any good or not. I don't know how the point system works. So.
Yeah. Well,
but I'll give you the thrill of talking about it.
Yeah. And I mean, right now it's interesting looking at fantasy football because a lot of signings have happened the last couple of days, especially at that fun position called running back, where 2 teams in the East in the AFC East each made running back additions. And I want your take on this. So we'll start with, I guess, the New England team. Ezekiel Elliott is going to the Patriots.
Ezekiel Elliott, to me, is the type of back that you saw how the Cowboys used him, and having a second back in Tony Pollard, who slowly but surely has emerged. And he still needs that kind of player around him because he's not a 4-quarter running back anymore. And the time is he's taken a fair amount of punishment during the course of his career. And that's what happens with running backs. I mean, a lot of touches, a lot of punishment. And I think he's still capable of being a 600 to 800 yard rusher in the right offense. He'll help the Patriots some. He's always been a good blocker. He's always been a good receiver out of the backfield. Now, he's not a route runner.
Yeah, he's not an Alvin Kamara.
He's not. Alvin Kamara runs routes. Le'Veon Bell, when he played for the Steelers, ran routes where you really put the linebacker or the safety in some peril when you do it. Elliott's never been that. He's always been a slide out of the backfield guy from Ohio State, but has good hands. So he'll help the Patriots. I could see around the goal line. I wouldn't doubt he's a guy that gets 6 to 8 touchdowns in a year, maybe 600 to 800 yards total, if he can get through unscathed.
And it helps for them. They do already have a back with Ramondre Stevenson. So already got a good guy. And I'm looking at this team, by the way, the quarterback unit. I just want to ask you about this. This is something I haven't seen. Their quarterbacks, Mac Jones, Bailey Zapp, Trace McSorley, and Malik Cunningham. What a quartet that is.
Well, let's see. Obviously, Mac Jones is the first-round pick. That group actually has the most experience. When Bailey Zappi got in there, he actually played very well for the Patriots last year.
He did well. Trace McSorley, of course.
Trace McSorley is an experienced guy that comes into camp. Now, no, Bill O'Brien did not coach him at Penn State, just so everybody knows. But he's the kind of guy that has that grit and the know-how, smart, picks up an offense quickly, and really helps. And I think that's it's got to be Mac Jones, because remember, Bill worked with Mac at Alabama.
It's going to be Mac, but I think it's interesting seeing this unit, and also the fourth guy, Malik Cunningham, has been discussed quite heavily, that he's been getting a few more snaps than many thought he would, in that almost, I'm trying to think of the best quarterback comparison for him in terms of quarterback who can run and do all of this stuff, that, not Taysom Hill, because Taysom Hill is Taysom, and he's built differently than anyone else ever has been. But there's been a few quarterbacks over the past decade or so who they were quarterbacks who also weren't just used there. They were put out at wide receiver or at running back. I think of Denard Robinson from Michigan, who was put in that weird role. There's been a few guys, and he's kind of in that spot right now, because in college, I went to Syracuse. We played Louisville all the time. That was terrifying seeing him run at us. So maybe Billy Belichick and Bill O'Brien have a little fun with him.
And Mitchell Tinsley, by the way, played with Bailey Zappi at Western Kentucky.
Yeah.
For a year they were together. So
what a fun one. And the other running back addition, though, the one that I think is more of the star-studded addition, is in New York. It is Mr. Dalvin Cook signed a deal 1 year, 6.8, I believe, with the Jets, who now have a loaded backfield, to say the least.
His problem has been injuries, and which of late has been Elliott's problem too. Again, same story. I can see him being a 600, 800-yard rusher, not a 1,000-yard rusher. Look, with Aaron Rodgers, you want to throw the ball. Well, and they have the receivers, especially with Garrett Wilson, they can throw to. But he could be a 600 to 800-yard rusher, maybe a guy that gets anywhere from 4 to 8 touchdowns. I know they think he's going to be like a 1,500-yard rusher now. Well, I don't see it.
I don't see it either, but the thing is, they have a seriously loaded backfield. You've got Breece Hall, who looked great. Dalvin Cook, of course, one of the best in the NFL still. Michael Carter is your third guy. And he's a great running back as well, out of UNC a few years ago. That is a loaded backfield, not to mention the Zonovan Knights and the rest of the team that's behind that. They have a legitimately strong backfield. And that doesn't even include the guys who are going to get rushing touches like Mecole Hardman, because why wouldn't you give him rushing touches? Because he's the fastest player ever.
You would give him
the jet sweeps,
2 to 3 touches a game in the running game, like Deebo Samuel. Hardman was used like that occasionally in Kansas City. Also remember, too, Nathaniel Hackett is calling the plays. And, of course, before he went to Denver and the ill-fated head coaching job there, he was with Green Bay.
The one that Sean Payton dissed.
But, with Dillon and Jones, he had running backs that he utilized in the Green Bay attack. So, but again, they split reps. And that's how they did it. So even with Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay ran the football, and it was an important part, because the play-action game that Rodgers excels at can only be effective if you can run the ball.
And imagine they line up Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook in the backfield and just say, here's these two guys. And then they pass the ball because he's Rodgers and he can do whatever he wants to.
Usually Green Bay didn't line. Jones and Dillon didn't play together.
They didn't a lot. but I'd be intrigued to see if he does do that when you've got two guys of this talent level that can do pretty much whatever you need them to. You line them two up, and also outside you give him his main guy, Alan Lazard, someone he's used for years, and you say, okay, also here's Garrett Wilson. How does a defense defend this team with Wilson, Lazard, Corey Davis is a great receiver. Of course, Mecole Hardman can take the top off of any defense. Right. Conklin and Uzoma, pretty darn good tight ends to have.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy when the Jets don't do well because I have a lot of Jet fan friends, and also they're the Jets. Like, you have to laugh at them, of course. So in the back of my mind, I'm looking at it like, this is a legitimate team. This is a team that, like, yeah, Rodgers is old, but he hasn't had this much help around him in gosh knows how long. Maybe Greg Jennings, Donald Driver.
His son Christian's doing pretty well here, by the way. He is. Yeah, probably back that far. Sure. I mean, look, Devontae Adams is always spectacular, but they, yeah.
It was Devontae plus whoever else they had laying around in the shed.
Yeah. And they already have a defense that's pretty good anyway.
They got a good defense, got a great O-line. Like, they are, I mean, they're building.
Is this a year where you look around and say the Patriots are the fourth best team in the division? Because Miami's not bad. Buffalo's very good.
Yeah. They've got three legitimate teams, and the Patriots are sitting there like, we're here too. And that's going to be.
When the Patriots were rolling, and they rolled for 20 years, they went into almost every season knowing that they started out 5-1.
They'd lose that odd game to someone.
Well, they'd lose that odd game to somebody in the division.
Yeah. The Jets would win one. The Dolphins would win that last game of the season randomly.
Something, right? But they go in the season knowing there's a pretty good chance they're 5-1 based on the competition they had in the division. Now the question is, what can you do now the rest of the time in the division? Can you come up with 7 more wins in the division?
I don't think you can.
Right? And they could, out of the division. Well, now this division, I mean, I think the team that wins it is probably going to be 4-2 in the division.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to fight hard to get to the 4.
Yeah. And whoever wins this division out of those 4 teams, I think realistically, it's going to be them or the Chiefs for Super Bowl. That would make the most sense.
A lot of that's going to depend on
the Chiefs, and
it's going to depend a lot on. I mean, where is Joe Burrow?
That's a good question.
I mean, where is he? How serious in reality is the injury?
How serious is he? The Ravens, what do they look like? What do the Chargers look like? I mean, Justin Herbert's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
I like Herbert as a quarterback a lot.
He's awesome.
But there's something missing with that team that makes games closer than they should.
It's the same thing they've had for a decade and a half with Phillip Rivers. The same issue is like, what's wrong here? You have this team that's great.
How do you go on the road, build the lead you did against Jacksonville, and lose the game in the playoffs? How do you do that? Right? And part of the reason that they lost that game, you can talk about, look at all the points they gave up, and yeah, but you stopped scoring. See, people forget that part. Okay? You keep getting the ball back, you can score again. Right? And they didn't. There's always something missing with them. And I can't quite put a handle on it. Now they take some chances that analytics say, hey, go do it. And there's no common sense to it.
Brandon Staley's an analytics guy.
Right. But you have to have common sense combined with analytics. You know, that it's funny because Mike Rhodes and I were talking about this the other day. And we're talking about a couple of players, and he says, Steve, he's just got a feel for it. Right? And that, to me, is analytics people hate when I talk about feel for the game. But there is a way that if somebody knows how to play, they have the ability to see things, create things. That's what I liked about Bryce Young in Alabama. Now, look, he's going to run for his life in Carolina. Okay? But even at Alabama, how many times did you see him create something out of nothing? The Texas game, they're losing. He makes a play. That's not the play he starts with is not the play it ended up being. He made a series of those to drive them downfield and beat Texas and Austin. Right? They lost the Tennessee game. He made a couple of plays where Jack and I are watching the game on the plane flying back. He makes a couple of plays where you're sitting there like, I'm sorry. This is like, okay? He's being pressured, gets finds a spot, bang, makes the pass. That's not how the play was drawn up. Okay? That's not point A to point B. That's not analytics. That's feel for the game. That's feel for knowing where all the other chess pieces are on the board as they move around and make a play. Hard to defend a guy like that. Now, he's going to have to do a lot of that with Carolina. I mean, Carolina ended up with the 9th overall pick in the draft. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, they ended up with the 1st overall pick, but like in terms of like where they finished, they were 9th.
They also have quite a good. As a Saints fan, I don't like saying it, but they've got a pretty decent team around him as well, which is going to help.
Well, yeah, Miles Sanders is now there, which helps. It's a division that 9 wins can win.
Yeah,
division
it has been for a while.
Last year, 8 wins won the division.
Mm-hmm. As a Saints fan, yeah. It sucks to say, but you're right. I don't like that.
8 and 9 won the division last year, right? The Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay won with 8 and 9. It should have been us, but that was a different discussion. But you've got Sanders, Thielen, DJ Chark.
So bitter.
I am bitter. I'm a Saints fan. We have a lot of bitterness to go around.
We won a Super Bowl.
We won a Super Bowl, but we also got screwed out of one because the referees said, yeah, that wasn't pass interference. I have never... This is the first time I believe we've brought this up in this setting before. There has not been a moment where I have felt more heartbroken from watching a moment. I was sitting there, freshman year of college, sitting there with myself and 20 Patriot fan friends watching the Saints-Rams game before the Patriots came on to play the Chiefs. And we're driving 1:30 left. Ted Ginn makes this catch. So excited. Feels so great. Saints get down there 1:20. You're like, okay, they're going to make one play. We'll be up by just enough to get out of this game. With 10 points up, 1 minute left, it's over. As the pass goes, I'm like, that's a touchdown. And I see the corner coming. You're like, oh no, it's a pick 6. And then no. He decides, I'm going to lay out Tommy Lee Lewis. One of my favorite Saints players. Random guy. Love him. Lays him out. And I still, to this day, I have a thing against referees. They're great people. They seem like really cool people.
They speak highly of you.
They speak highly of me, of course. Just that play, I think, broke something inside of me, Steve. And it can never be fixed again. You get to that point with that team the Saints had, where you had Ted Ginn Jr. playing like he was 24 again.
Well, to be honest with you, if they get through that game, they beat the Patriots.
The Rams put up, what, 6 points, 3 points?
3.
The Saints offense was the best in the NFL that year.
I know.
Alvin Kamara, best running back in the NFL that season. Michael Thomas, best receiver. Drew Brees, playing like he was 25.
The Patriots won the game without their best game. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a credit to them.
Yeah.
But they didn't play their A game, especially on offense. Mm-hmm. Did not play their A game.
And imagine that Saints defense, that Marshawn Lattimore at DB.
Sure.
You've got the Saints rotating 6 defensive ends, including Trey Hendrickson as your 6th guy, who, by the way, got paid a lot of money 2 years later to go to Cincinnati.
Bengals, yeah.
Like, that Saints team was just perfect in every way. There was nothing wrong. O-line, one of the best. Defense, one of the best. Kicking game with Will Lutz, great. Everything. It broke me, Steve. It broke me. Sorry, we mentioned Saints. My mind broke a little bit.
It's always important for me to, when I work with people, to give others the opportunity to feel like they're having a therapy session. Because I feel like you walk out of here feeling at least like you got it off your chest. Now, you may have to do it again during the season.
I'll need it a few hundred times during the season. It's going to be a rough one. But that's because the division's awful and the Falcons are still terrible, which is brings me joy. There's not a team I wish ill will on. I never liked the Patriots growing up because I live in New England and didn't enjoy that, having to deal with all Patriots fans winning every Super Bowl.
So Ritter was now the Falcons quarterback.
He's
right?
now the Falcons quarterback, and Kyle Pitts is the most overrated player in the NFL.
Tight end.
Tight end. And the Falcons are the Falcons. You know, they're gonna lose leads. They're gonna be like, you know what? We're gonna score 4 touchdowns today. You know what they're gonna do? They're gonna lose that lead.
Oh. Bitter. My good friend Wes Durham is the play-by-play voice of the Falcons. So
tell him I hope he has fun watching the team lose every game of the season.
I don't think I'll text that to him.
That's okay. I'll think it in my heart, and I'll know that, and it's okay.
Okay. Cool.
Hey, Atlanta Stadium, Mercedes-Benz is cool. Real cool looking stadium.
I know.
Atlanta United played there for a while. Real cool place.
Hey, but by the way, Miami, they've been winning, right? But you know what? They're not selling. It's a 21,000 seat stadium down there. They're not selling out. You know why?
Because tickets are too expensive.
People are like, I can't pay that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking hundreds of dollars. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, Messi's good, but I mean, I can't pay that. I'll get an Apple subscription.
Yeah. He has been promoting that thing like wildfire, and I would love to see.
He scored a ton of goals.
He has, I believe it's six straight games. Every game he's scored and assisted. Like, Messi is on fire. And I mean, if we're talking soccer here, do you know what the funniest thing is with his Inter Miami run with Messi? Joe Pompliano put this out, and I realized this, but how it was funny. Inter Miami is in the final of the League's Cup, and after winning 6 straight games by 11 goals differential-wise. Yeah. None of those games count to the MLS itself.
That's right.
They're all cup games. They're not league games.
Right.
And so they're still in last place in the MLS.
Right. Don't they have the Red Bulls in New York coming up?
They do, and I believe a month or so.
They play
Harrison.
Harrison, New York?
Harrison, New Jersey.
Oh, New Jersey.
So they play just over the border. It's Red Bull Arena. Yeah. Real cool arena. I'm a big fan of it. I've been there a few times for some games.
Man, I'd have moved that to MetLife.
They should, but they won't. They won't do that.
I know they won't, but they should.
They should.
And I mean, that's where Pele and the Cosmos played. They played at the old Meadowlands.
Well, speaking of, I guess, soccer Brazilians, this is a topic I guess I wanted to bring up a little bit, is you've seen recent days more of these Saudi Arabia moves going on at all. Yeah. The most recent one and the biggest one has been Neymar.
They're not buying into this show, are they?
They are not buying into this show. Okay. But
I'm just asking.
Yeah, but Neymar just left for Saudi Arabia. Yeah. You might say that's crazy. He's the most expensive player in the world.
Well, this is after Mbappe said no.
Mbappe said no, and that would have been the biggest contract in the world, but Neymar's still the most expensive. His deal, the original one he signed from Barcelona to PSG, most expensive deal in history. It is never going to get caught. I mean, the money that it would take to get would be an Mbappe level thing, but never happened, so it doesn't matter. But now you've got Neymar and Ronaldo and all these players who are 25 to 35 and the best players in the world sitting in this league. And still, there's one question I have. Who's watching?
Nobody.
I truly don't know where you can find this league to watch. I don't know. These teams are crazy. The Al Hilal team he signed for is a team that truly could win like a Champions League in Europe.
Yeah.
But they're playing in Saudi Arabia where no one's going to watch and they're not going to get any of the UEFA press. Like,
I don't know. I couldn't tell you in a million years where to find it. A topic that we should broach at some point just for the fun of it. Relegation happens in
soccer.
In Europe. Of course, it does not happen here.
No American sports have it.
It is a concept that to people in Great Britain, they're like, well, what do you mean Rutgers isn't relegated? What do you mean you didn't relegate the Chicago Bears? What are you talking about? The Houston Rockets relegated.
Oh, this is going to be saved for a rainy day. Don't you worry, Steve. I have had this discussion. I did a full paper on it.
Now, remember something, that there is a big difference between the U.S.
Huge difference.
And Europe. the collegiate system that exists here does not exist there.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of,
the draft and all of that doesn't exist over there.
But you don't really have. There's no really. People don't go, hey. Like Penn State practiced at the College of Dublin soccer field.
Mm-hmm.
They lined it like a football field. But College of Dublin sitting there like, yeah. I talked to the people. They're like, yeah, we play somebody else. It's like nobody goes.
Yeah. Well, it was.
They don't have the same kind of system.
They don't have the same systems or the same money and facilities in Europe they do in the U.S. I was watching one of the biggest teams, Wrexham, of course, who just got into League Two, which is the fourth tier. Ryan Reynolds, Rob McElhenney's team. Yep. They came over to the U.S. to do a U.S. kind of tour. Had a lot of fans come out to games. And the first match they played was in Charlotte at UNC's football stadium against Chelsea, I believe. And their goalkeeper, Ben Foster, has a huge YouTube following, 1 million plus followers on their subscribers. And he was a former Premier League keeper. He played there 2 years ago, signed for Wrexham. It was a whole deal. And he has a YouTube where he does match day vlogs. He kind of follows the match and stuff. And he has a podcast as well. And he, on the podcast, said, yeah, we're at this college, and it's better than maybe everyone but 4 teams in the Premier League's stadiums, and in terms of stadium and in terms of facilities, weights, all of it. He was like, yeah, we got there and they had things that we don't have as professional soccer players over in the top leagues in Europe. Right. Like, there's a level to it. And we'll discuss relegation promotion, because I am a firm believer it's the best system and it should be the correct system, because it gets rid of tanking completely. Every sport, tanking's gone. You can't do it. And respectfully, I don't want to watch the Charlotte Bobcats get 9 wins in a season. Don't really want to do that. I love Kemba Walker. I love Corey Maggette.
But they're 9 really good ones, though. I just want to make one quick note on last night's Major League Baseball. DJ LeMahieu was named the Yankees Offensive Player of the Game.
Oh, no. I know where this is going.
He had the Yankees hit.
He was our offense, Steve.
They're hitting 230 as a team. And you know what's interesting? That has not changed all year. They've been in 230 and like 230, 232 the whole year. They can't hit.
Even with Judge back.
Not hit. No, he ended the game by wrapping into a 5-4-3 double play to end it last night. It was hit hard.
We are sitting 60 and 60.
For $279 million in total payroll when it's all said and done. And on this show, there's a lot more said than done. 1660 is not what you expect for $279 million.
No, it is not.
I've got a feeling that if I'm Brian Cashman, and he's the longest tenured GM in baseball, are we saying you're the longest tenured GM in baseball a year from now?
I thought he should have been out a while ago. That was just my own opinion. He should have been gone. Boone should have been gone. But, Yankees don't change managers and stuff often. Doesn't happen quite easily. Well, unless they do, they get the best guy, and except for the last one.
I mean, look, I'll say this. You can't pin it on one guy. You can't. Okay.
No.
It's a multitude of things. But you can't acquire Giancarlo Stanton, pay that kind of money, and have him hit 204.
And
you can't.
You can't have 3 of the better players in baseball. You can't have Judge and Garrett Cole and be like, oh, yeah, we're sitting 60 and 60.
Yeah, I know. You got potential Cy Young Award winner, reigning MVP.
Cy Young Award winner on the AL East's worst team. Yeah. It hurts a little bit, Steve. It hurts a little bit.
That's why I brought it up. I figured since you brought the Saints part up, I might as well just go for complete emotional damage today.
You saw blood, and you were like, "Yeah, I'm going for it today."
Here's a chance for complete emotional wreckage. We'll then build my friend back up tomorrow.
I have been not okay since the Beastquake run, but that's a story for another day, Steve, where, of course, people are listening in to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production. Check back daily for all the latest sports news and analysis.